Hey, how's it going everyone? For today's video we're gonna be talking about God of War Ragnarok. This game is set to release this year, but that is the most we know. No exact official release date has been shared yet. The game has been delayed before, as it was set to release in 2021, so I won't be surprised if it gets delayed further. Now that being said, here's everything we know so far. Given Sony's recent track record of slowly bringing some of its biggest PlayStation games to PC, and since 2018's God of War is now available on PC, it makes sense to suspect the possibility of a PC version of God of War Ragnarok. But if it's anything like previous Sony releases on PC, it's unlikely to come to the platform for some time, if it ever does. It took God of War 2018 nearly 3 years to release on PC. The new trailer for Ragnarok released in September confirms that the game takes place a few years after the events of 2018's God of War. The freezing winds of Fimbulwinter have come to Midgard, making survival for Kratos, Atreus, and Mimir in the Norse wilds even more challenging than before. While the last game built an enormous amount of trust and understanding between father and son, there is still a great deal of complexity in their interactions, especially after the revelation of Atreus' giant heritage and the hidden prophecy only Kratos saw. And that prophecy of course showed Kratos getting killed. I see Kratos' death as inevitable, but let's just hope that we don't see this in Ragnarok. The new Kratos designed for this reboot of the series is still to be explored. We still do have a lot to experience, and the new mechanics shown and demonstrated in the 2018's release are just not enough. In Ragnarok, Atreus is desperately curious like most young people. He wants to understand who he is more than anything else. In this case, he wants to understand who he could be. The mystery of Loki's role in the upcoming conflict is something that Atreus cannot let go of. He wants to keep his family safe, but Atreus also doesn't want to stand by and do nothing while conflict consumes the Nine Realms. It would also be a very great idea to have a switch between Kratos and Atreus as playable characters in the game. Atreus is no longer a little boy in the game, and now that he has grown a bit, I think it won't feel weird playing as Atreus. As for Kratos, Sony says he is intent on helping to spare Atreus from the bloody lessons he learned from his conflict with the gods. He wants to keep his son safe above all, and their confrontation with Baldur has vindicated the belief that only tragedy will come from further conflict with the Aesir. Together, Kratos and Atreus will have to make a choice about which path they will take. Whatever they choose will define the fate of all those living in the Nine Realms as Ragnarok approaches. And as for enemies in the game, two of the main enemies that we'll face in Ragnarok are Freya and Thor. Freya was once Kratos' friend, but after Kratos killed her son at the end of the first game, Baldur, Freya seeks vengeance. And Thor of course is mad at Kratos because his sons and half-brother are dead. Thor's legendary bloodlust and wrath will be aimed at Kratos and Atreus, referred to multiple times by Mimir as the biggest butchering bastard in the Nine Realms. Thor earned his title as one of the most powerful Aesir gods by wiping out nearly all the giants at Odin's command. The fight against Freya could be something like the fight against Baldur. We could be starting the game with a fight against her, and then we can defeat Freya only for her to come back at later stages of the game to continue heckling our gameplay. 2018's God of War was praised for its combat mechanics and systems, and Ragnarok appears to carry forward that spirit and tradition. But now we are looking at a more extended and developed version of Kratos' fighting techniques. We can clearly see in the gameplay trailers that his fighting style is more refined. As for Atreus, I don't know for sure, but him playing the role of the sidekick won't be befitting of him now that he's the main focus of the story. That's why I think we'll be able to play as him, or at least have him contribute more to the fights that will take place as we progress through the story. The enemies in Ragnarok will be harsher and more varied, with Kratos and Atreus set to take on a host of new creatures from across Norse mythology. Some of the new enemies revealed so far include the Stalker and the Draki. Whereas 2018's God of War allowed players to visit 6 of the 9 realms, Ragnarok goes further and takes you to all 9. This includes Vanaheim, Svartalfheim, and Asgard, which were not in the first game. New areas from previous locations have been added to Ragnarok as well. Exploring the realms will take you everywhere, from verdant, otherworldly jungles to intricate subterranean mining networks. This next installment in the series will bring you a more diverse, beautiful, and mysterious variety of locations than in any other God of War game. While we still do not know much about what the story of Ragnarok will cover, or what Sony Santa Monica's post-release plans might be, we do know that this will be Kratos' last outing in the world of Norse mythology. That's according to Cory Barlog, the director of God of War 2018. Barlog said in an interview that Sony Santa Monica decided to cap the story at 2 games in order to keep it from getting too unwieldy. There are elements of Kratos' relationship with Atreus that can be explored in a second game, but stretching things out too much from there would weaken the tale the studio wants to tell. So do not expect a third game of Kratos walloping various Norse gods. That's not to say that this is necessarily the end of his journey, or the final time we'll follow the adventures of Kratos and Boy, but it does suggest some finality at the end of Ragnarok. Although I would appreciate seeing more of Kratos fighting Norse gods, we have plenty of them that the previous game didn't mention. And sure, this game has its own slower and wiser vibes, but I still would really love to see Kratos' rage and destruction more often in this release. And in order for Kratos to be so angry, we have to get more Norse gods trying to hurt him, or worse, trying to hurt Atreus. Now this wouldn't fit the game's theme, I know, since Kratos now is running away from his past to keep his son safe from it all. But still, more fights against gods would be highly appreciated. The previous game had you fight knockoff gods and all, but for this one, since they're including Thor, including more famous gods would be great. As of right now, DLC plans haven't been revealed for the game. Looking back at God of War Reboot, it received a set of updates that added in additional content, including new armor, game rebalances, and the option to roll into a new game while keeping your gear and skills. It did not have any paid expansions. It remains to be seen if the next God of War will have any post-launch plans. God of War Ragnarok has not gone on sale just yet, so no pre-orders available for it. This is it for what we know about God of War Ragnarok so far. Let me know in the comments if you have any other information about the game. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, get subscribed for more daily content, and I'll see you tomorrow with a new one. Enjoy.